an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood, episode 39, Daydream. In this episode, we find out exactly how the team organizes their little trick on Kimblee, and it looks like our whole crew is going down into the tunnels, the mining tunnels, which sounded like a fine idea until I actually saw them going down there and realized what that means and how pride could just show up at any time. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Max for commissioning this entire episode, series, etc. Thank you, Max. So, y'all, I have to say, right out of the gate, the fact that these two dudes, the Chimera men, no, I was trying to make something happen there. It didn't happen. Michael, if you're in the chat and you can work on a Chimera and men pun for me, workshop that, I would really appreciate it. But the fact that they have sort of become part of this effort is simultaneously really surprising to me, and also I think a really, really smart idea. It's interesting because nobody so far that has undergone any of this experimentation, the people who have been Chimera all seem to be perfectly happy with their powers and what these forms allow them to do. I guess because they're all just giant bullies, and so being in a form that allows them to bully and fight seems pretty much fine to them. But these two dudes, the way they present what happened, it's not totally clear to me if they had no say in becoming Chimera, if it was sort of misrepresented in terms of what the actual experience would be or the result. But they say that their families were told they were dead. And the way that they say it makes me feel like it either wasn't something that they wanted, they weren't warned that was what was going to happen until after the transformation, and then they were like, oh, well, we already told your family you're dead. Or if there was an aspect of this that they were just thinking was going to be worth it. Yeah, I have to say goodbye to my family forever, but it's totally fine because I'm about to get this rad power and I value that more than my family. I'm not sure how to take the way that this went down for them. But Chimera, says Be More. Chimera, I don't hate it. I'll tell you that. I don't hate it. Chimera. Okay. Thank you. Candace is here. Hi, Candace. So, and there's this really odd moment when they're talking about getting to see their families again. And the one dude is I'm surprised you're excited to see the old ball and chain again. Basically, you and your wife low-key hated each other. And the other guy is look who's talking. You were a drunk and your kid never wanted to be around you. And they say these things to each other and then they just start laughing good-naturedly. That's just boys being boys. It is a weird moment. Guys, that is in my opinion, that exchange is two people going for blood. That is the kind of thing you throw in somebody's face in the middle of a fight when you are pretty much reconciled to the fact that they are about to reach a point where they never want to speak to you again anyway. So you just say this incredibly shitty thing to them. But the two of them are just acting like it's just a fun little back and forth. And I am just really look, they both obviously are not in a good place. If they can say this stuff and also like be on the receiving end of it and seemingly be unfazed by it, I don't know what to do with it. But truly, yeah, this was a moment of just like, ouch to both of them. B. Moore says, it's a guy thing. Don't look for logic. It's not. See, like, you could say it's a guy thing, but I have been around a lot of dudes and they would be very upset by this. Like, I have never seen dudes interact in this way and it not be taken as an insult. This would very much be a problem. Damien says military humor can get that way according to a Marine friend of mine. Okay. I haven't been like around many Marines, a few, but not like together. So maybe. Mrs. Yegi says, I'm a guy and I don't see the logic. Well, evidently like the logic isn't there. So maybe not seeing it is exactly the point. I don't know. But yeah, it's just the kind of thing that, it's just the kind of thing that to me, you say that shit and you had better be ready for me to take my earrings off and come at you because, you know, this is the sort of thing that I've always seen sort of represented in media or even amongst like, I won't say friends of mine, but acquaintances where they'll get in a fight with a significant other and they'll say things like this to one another. And in my opinion, if you ever are able to exchange insults of this kind of like low blow level with somebody that you are romantically involved with, you don't respect each other enough to be in a relationship. The only time that you should be lobbing anything like this is when you are like breaking, like you are prepared to just burn the bridge and never look back. And there are going to be times where people deserve it. Don't get me wrong. They deserve to just be told about themselves as you walk out the door. But I have seen people have this kind of exchange and then stay together. And that's the part that I don't understand. Like, just don't go down this road in this way, you know? B. Moore says, okay, if you want to understand it, the short explanation is that guys have invisible emotional force fields. We toss rocks at each other like this to test that the force fields are there. If they brush it off, they're good and healthy. If a hit lands, we know to back off and try to help out. These kinds of ribbing is a form of communication, interrogating how people are doing without asking directly. Well, that sounds a lot like you all need therapy. So just going to just say that. This is not a way to interact. You don't insult somebody to see how they take it as a means of communication. That's fucked up. So everybody, get a hold of yourselves. This is nonsense. It's like, how about you just, you know, like be people and talk to each other? Is that really all that much to ask? I guess it is. I don't know. Anyway, so, but yeah, these guys like being involved in this whole thing, I just never really thought that we were going to come across any chimera who regretted what happened to them. Also, I do want to mention, because these are, we met the chimera that were with greed, like the original greed, right? What other human chimera have we met? I feel like there have been others, if I'm not mistaken. Has the guy who infused his daughter with a dog, I really wish that all the people who had already successfully reached human chimera levels had just like let the guy know, hey, we've done that already, so he didn't try to do it as if it were this big like breakthrough that he was planning to crack on through, when in fact it had already been done. Like, if it can, like, this dude really thought that he was making some like necessary sacrifices for science without being aware that there were like a bunch of fucking human chimera wandering around already. I swear to God, if I were this, and like granted, the guy's dead, so at this point it's not going to matter. But imagine if he were still alive and then these two dudes wandered in and he realized that they had been around for like a decade. And it's not just like, oh yeah, we succeeded in making a chimera, a human chimera that can just say a few words. These dudes are just straight up transforming in and out, apparently, when they feel like it, and fighting and talking like people. There's no effect on their minds, it doesn't seem like. That dude was very, very behind. And he was out here sacrificing family members for something that had already been achieved ages earlier, which is so embarrassing and just like, it's just really sad. So yeah, this is, B. Moore says, Tucker claimed to make an animal smarter rather than taking a human and making them stronger. He used humans, which is cheating, and yeah, is an inferior result to this, but that wasn't what he claimed to do. Well, regardless, in my opinion, if you are able to like manage this kind of result with these dudes, where they are human-shaped normally and can transform in and out, I do not doubt that they can make smarter animals as well. I feel like that's just that they're not going for that probably because it's not useful to them in the way that they need, but I bet they can. Although I say it's not useful to them in the way that they need, but like I could really see there being a lot of uses for that, especially in, you know, areas like this where they're kind of out in the wilderness. If they made like a chimera that had like the mind of a human, but the body of a bear, and it was just carrying messages back and forth or doing God knows what, but nobody knew because it was just a fucking bear in the mountains. That's a pretty good like cover, I feel like, you know? But anyway, yeah, that whole thing, like looking back and realizing how far the science had already progressed, and this dude was like doing these horrific things to really get to a point that had already been reached and left behind. Just oof, extra oof. That thing he did to his daughter was already so awful, and this just adds an extra layer of like, yikes, my guy, you know? So, this is when we start this episode, picking up right from the moment of Scar standing on the rooftop holding Winry under one arm. Kimblee is like about to try and attack, and Edward is like, dude, what the fuck? You can see he has Winry and you're going to try and attack this dude? And what Scar does here, I was like puzzled for a moment. He like destroys the building. He does that thing he does where he gets put into a corner and he just like slams his fist on the ground and breaks the ground. And then but he's on a building, right? And so it just looks like there's this big like gap in the front of the building, and then he turns and just walks away. And I was so confused by this until one of the soldiers stops Kimblee because he's about to go forward. And the soldier is like, sir, you can't go, you can't do that. The building is really unstable now and it could topple on you. Because for a second I was just like, did he just destroy that for like the sheer drama of it before? And look, I don't really doubt that maybe Scar would do that. I don't really want to call Scar a drama queen because he does feel like somebody who tries to just get done what he needs to get done. He doesn't really truly feel like a drama queen, but I also was like already aware that this was sort of something that had been set up amongst our guys, you know, that Scar wasn't actually running off with Winry. So a part of me was like, did they just tell him to do this to just cause chaos? But the excuse of like, no, you can't go after him, the building is unstable, was a pretty solid means of keeping Kimblee from taking immediate action. It's really hard for me to tell how much awareness Kimblee has that he's being played. There's a sort of sense to him of like always being kind of aware, but not being able to pin down anywhere that it's coming from or the direction it's going. Like he doesn't know who's behind it. I don't know, even if he thinks he's being played, it sort of turns out to be like most of the people out here are either in on it or just low-key trying to make his life more difficult. I'm not sure if he is aware the issue is this widespread. I think he may think, I'm pretty sure he already suspects Miles. But I don't know if there is, like, if he has the level of paranoia he should regarding all of these guys. But yeah, the look that he keeps giving, there's always sort of a moment of like, I don't really buy this, but I can't think of a reason why they would be lying about it. And I also can't think of like an alternative action to take here. So I guess I've been sort of put into a corner again. But the fact that he keeps being put in the position where there's only one choice, I think it's going to really start to become clear to him. He's being corralled, you know, like there's a certain direction they all want him to go in, and he's going to begin to pick up on the fact that he is being forced into that direction because there's no other options set up for him. So yeah, this whole like escape, by the way, in the midst of this, something really important happens, which is Kimblee loses his hat. And I feel like this is something that every time that he suddenly winds up with no hat, I really do need to address it, because it just does sort of, there's an air of dignity with the hat. And once it's gone, it really signals to me, okay, so now Kimblee is starting to lose control of things a little bit. I think that this is going to be my signal from now on in the show. When Kimblee has his hat, Kimblee is king in this scene. And when something happens to the hat, that is a signal that Kimblee is beginning to lose the upper hand. So he loses his hat, and then we cut to Eric, who is talking to Miles about the fact that he has to put on this huge charade, and that he was able to act convincingly angry with Kimblee because he already was so pissed about what he's having to do here to deal with this fucking guy. Which, that seems very real to me. It does seem like a massive pain in the ass to have to go through all this trouble. So we go to, like, back in time a little bit, to the moment when Scar is talking to Winry and saying, anything that I tell you about why I killed your parents is going to come across sounding like an excuse. Which I really do appreciate. Again, I know I said this last time, but there's just, that is so correct. You can't explain killing somebody's like loved ones. And almost ever, I think, like there's got to be some circumstances, but they're the exception, or almost ever sound like you're doing anything but trying to justify some wild shit. So he tells her at this point that she has every right to pass judgment on him. And instead of like, you know, screaming at him or anything, she goes over to this crate and gets some fabric and begins to bandage his arm, because if he doesn't do it quickly, he's going to lose so much blood that he can die. Honestly, that she picks up this like filthy rag out of a random crate in this abandoned building. He's going to die of sepsis. But yeah, she does this, and Ed is genuinely startled by it. And Scar says, "Does this mean you forgive me?" And she immediately is like, no, it does not mean that. I am doing something that I think my parents would approve of. But I don't forgive you. I'm just not going to, like, you know, turn around and fucking murder you, which you low-key kind of deserve, and I think that you kind of know that. And I'm just going to sort of let the fact that you know that you deserve that be the punishment. I do appreciate this, honestly. Like, it only works if a person really genuinely has guilt, and clearly Scar does. He's beginning to turn a corner here. I really like how much time Scar is given to turn this corner too. Like, I had already said, the episode where Winry is looking up at him, and he extends his hand toward her and suddenly realizes that, like, he's in the position that Kimblee was with his brother all those years ago, and he's about to, like, do the same exact thing. It was definitely, like, a transformative moment for Scar, where he's, like, seeing things from the outside and kind of going, oh my God, what am I doing? But it's not a moment of completely turning everything around. He doesn't have a 180 shift and go, oh my God, I'm evil, I can't believe. He just kind of goes, oh. And then we're given several episodes where he's left to sort of process that and interrogate where he's coming from now and what his motivations still are and whether or not it's justified or valid. So the fact that we have this moment where he finally is like, I have just become, like, straight up rage. I have really lost it a little bit. Like, you know, he admits it in a way that feels so sad. I just thought it was well done and felt much more earned than other sort of transformations that I have seen. Of course, like, Ed has to get in there and just be like, I don't forgive you and you're fucked up and you should be punished. He can't help himself. But yeah, Scar reaches out to Miles here and is just like, you said I was one of your people. What's the deal? And he's like, yeah, I'm part Ishvalan. And Scar asks him, what are you fucking doing, dude, with these people? You know what they did. How can you be part of it? And Miles says, my objective is to work from the inside to change how the people of this country view the people of Ishval. And Scar seems genuinely, like, startled by it. And Miles says, I don't know how long it'll take, but my mixed blood gives me a slight advantage at least. I'm an Ishvalan pebble tossed into the ocean of the Amestrian military. Maybe in time, the ripples I create will become great waves. This is tough. Look, y'all know about how I reacted to the whole I don't see color argument that Ed put forth several episodes ago when he was talking to Miles. I did not think much of it. It felt very, it felt like centrist in a way that's, like, extremely cowardly. And there is a major part of me here with Miles that I want to roll my eyes at, because the thing is, as you get older and you start to understand how these systems work, it is really clear that they are set up explicitly so that they are unchangeable. Does that make sense? So, like, the whole idea of, I'm going to join this military operation to try and change things from the inside. He doesn't even say, like, I want to change particular, like, laws, for example. He says he wants to change how people view Ishvalans. It feels like very sort of weird respectability politics to me, you know, and I don't understand, because as far as I know, I haven't really heard, and I may just, like, have overlooked it, or it may have been subtle enough that I wasn't getting that was what was happening, but I don't remember hearing anybody be racist toward Ishvalans, like, with a particular judgment of their character. All I have seen is the military being instructed to completely annihilate them as a people. And I just don't feel like I understand what image folks in Amestris have to begin with of Ishvalans that he is attempting to change. And maybe that's, like, me not really picking up on some things, but I am watching this show pretty closely. And I feel like if I haven't picked up on that, it hasn't really been established. So what this comes across as for me is the onus of like proving something to people being put on Miles or on the Ishvalans, as if they need to like earn the respect of the country that annihilated them. And that's not at all their responsibility. And it's not actually like, I don't know. It feels like the kind of thing that if you're just going to take this on as a very like surface level interaction, the way that a kid would, you can sort of like hand wave it and be like, okay, fine. But if you poke at this at all, it doesn't really work. You know, I just wish that there was more about what it is that he's materially hoping to change, instead of like just, I'm going to prove that not all Ishvalans are bad. Like, what is that even? What do people think that? Like, what is it that people believe that you're trying to change at all? And why would like this do that? And the acknowledgement that being mixed is going to be helpful in that regard. It feels like an admission of something that, again, I don't really feel like I've seen in this society. I don't feel like it's been made explicit enough. So just overall, this interaction, it felt like what we were supposed to be getting is Scar's reaction of violence and vengeance is one way to deal with historical systemic subjugation, oppression, and genocide. Or you could do what Miles is doing, which is like the productive, peaceful way of trying to enact change, which feels completely worthless. Like, I don't really see him. I don't see it. So I'm supposed to, I think, kind of be like, see, Scar, you could be more like Miles if you wanted to be, and like work with these people. No, I don't really think he should. Him working with these guys, okay, fair. But otherwise, it just felt really sort of limp. So I just wanted to address that, because the scene, it just really seemed like the moment where Scar reacts to him saying this and his like shock, like I was supposed to be interpreting that as like Scar is being introduced to a new concept of how to fight back, something that he hadn't thought of, which is to like become part of things in a way that can work slowly over time instead of being this like radical force. And because I just don't really see what Miles is talking about to begin with, and I'm not really seeing how he can get the results he's describing, it just kind of doesn't go anywhere for me. It's a scene of, to me, Scar being like, look, Scar's a maniac murderer. That said, everybody that he's gone after, like, did the shit that he's gone after them for. You know, the only people that really were not involved at all were the Elric brothers. And otherwise, we haven't, as far as I recall, seen Scar target anybody who wasn't directly involved with the genocide of his people. I just can't be mad at him. I know that I'm supposed to be. I know that I'm supposed to see him as just a maniac who's out of control. And to a degree, I like get it. But because I haven't seen a ton of like collateral damage, there hasn't been like a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if I have forgotten about an instance in which a bunch of bystanders were like seriously injured or killed, I may have just forgotten. But the only fights that I remember are the ones where he was just going straight after a particular state alchemist who was directly responsible. Like, we saw their face at the scenes in Ishval. We know that they did the things that he's accusing them of. So it's hard for me to like, he's just holding Nazis accountable is like what it comes down to. And maybe these people can try and tell themselves that they were following orders. And that is also a thing that Nazis did. I just have a really difficult time with it, you know? And maybe that's part of the point as well. I'm trying to think, I think there was a time where he like collapsed part of a sewer or something, and maybe some people got hurt in the midst of that. Maybe that was like one of the instances where he caused some collateral damage. But right. And Kyle says Winry's parents, but he was not exactly lucid at the time. Right. And I don't find like him killing them. It really is in a way like understandable. He had just gone through an acute trauma from people who looked a very specific way, woke up to his arm being like fucked, and that person with those exact features staring down at him. Like I can't even really be mad at him for that either. I understand that the like loss is very real to her, and I respect that completely. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't be angry at him, but considering everything that he had just experienced, I understand. It's a tragedy, and they were good people trying to help, but I also understand. B. Moore says, it might have been mentioned that he killed more state alchemists off screen. I don't recall, but you're right. Every state alchemist he's shown fighting on screen was a soldier in Ishval. Yeah, so, you know, it's just one of those things where a lot of storylines where... And there are so many out there, right, where there is a wronged people, and then you have one person from that particular group who has a very valid grudge against the people in power, whomever they may be. We will watch them like sort of become more and more radical and more angry until they're doing things that feel straight up cruel and evil and irrational in a way that begins to almost feel like it's undermining the validity of their rage. And it seems to me sometimes to be kind of like it teeters on the edge of like, well, there's a way to protest peacefully. You know what I mean? Where it's almost patronizing when the storyline goes in this direction. Like, take, for example, Black Panther. And Killmonger is like, right. He's just right. He's right about everything. But then they finally decide to have him like go in this direction where he's just slapping women across the face and being like, talking about just murdering children, like explicitly talking about murdering. And they have him go that way because unless they take it to this complete extreme, he is too justified and relatable. So they decide to just like pull it wildly off in a direction to completely discredit the overall cause that he is fighting for. And it feels really cheap and shady. You know, it feels like we're just going to try and act like if you do anything violent to get retribution or to try and balance the scales or pull power back, you're probably on the path to doing this kind of like horrible thing. It feels like part and parcel of the attitude that we have today about how like violence doesn't accomplish anything, when historically that's not true. Violence is the only thing that has freed oppressed people. It's always worked, actually, you know, but we try and create this like entire new narrative. And it feels like these sorts of stories play into that in a way that I find really like troubling when I look at it all as a whole. This whole, we shouldn't fight because that's like, violence is wrong. Okay, but these people are out here living like really well-paid, low-key, luxurious lives after committing genocide. I can't I can't find a reason why Scar should be faulted for holding them responsible. So, yeah, this entire conversation with him and Miles, it just feels like, why don't you be more like a Miles? And it's like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, doing nothing? Going along and, like, helping the military in the exact shit? I mean, you think if the Fuhrer decided, we're going to, like, re-attack Ishval, Miles is going to be able to do anything about that? I mean, it just doesn't... Miles is the perception of the Ishvalan people is not the crux of the problem here. It's just the way that they are perceived by people is part of the system that's oppressing them, spinning a narrative. So him trying to sort of undo that alone, it feels like it's the responsibility is being put on the victim to like undo damage in a way that's gross. So anyway, I'm sorry guys. I know that like probably I'm going more into this sort of thing than I probably should, because it's not meant to be this deep, but it's just one of like so many stories that I have come across that take this direction with somebody, and with somebody who has very legitimate grievances, who has horrific tragedy and trauma, and that has seen firsthand everybody being slaughtered because of just where they live or what they look like or whatever. And then they're expected to sort of like, there's like a specific prescribed way that they're supposed to deal with it that feels like really patronizing. And I am growing increasingly bothered by it as the years pass, because it feels, like I said, like we are as a country, as in the United States, we have a really strong narrative like that lately in the last like 30 years that I feel like this plays into in a way that media has such an effect on people's minds and the way that they interpret how morality works. And we don't want to admit that media has this effect, but it does. And this type of story feeds into this perception that like you shouldn't have that kind of rage, or that people shouldn't be held accountable violently when they perpetuated violence themselves on innocence, and they are far from innocent, you know? So I needed to address it because this whole thing just rubbed me the wrong way. And I feel like the inclusion of Miles as somebody who's Ishvalan in the story, in the position that he is, it just feels like, it just feels like a respectability thing. It feels weird to me. He feels like a token isn't even really quite the right word here, because it doesn't, a token always feels like, okay, well, we just put a random character in to like ensure that we have one of this type in with our crew. But for him, he's like a mechanism for something within the story in a way that feels somehow like reductive to him as a person. So, and this is when Scar, you know, Miles tells him this whole thing about like changing things from the inside, and Scar says, "I am a festering wound of hatred, born of the great Ishvalan war. I'm thankful that there's someone like you out there." And look, is he a festering wound of hatred? Yeah. I'm not even trying to disagree with that. Like, yes, you are. But I get it. It's one thing to have it like the way that they had that line. I'm fine with that, because the way that it's written makes it feel a lot less like I'm going about this the wrong way, and a lot more like what I have been doing hasn't actually been healing me. And that's what my objective was, kind of thing, you know? If he's straight up just trying to hold people accountable and get retribution for each of the people that participated in this thing, he's been doing the right thing. But if he's been trying to like heal and reach a place of peace with everything that's happened. And he is stopping and looking at himself and being like, this isn't doing it. That's valid. That's fine. But it doesn't feel like that's what I thought his objective was this whole time, if that makes sense. So this is the point when Miles gets a phone call and he's telling them that, like, we captured Scar, we've got him. And he tells them, inform Kimblee. And then all of a sudden, this is when these two dudes chime in. Oh, and Dr. Marco and Mei Chang appear as well. And he says, don't take down Scar. We need him. Considering that Miles had just called in like, we have him. I was like, this feels like bad timing. So the weather is starting to change and there is a storm coming in, which winds up being a factor later with who they're going to send out, because Al is the only one that's going to be able to make it in this, like, driving snow. So when we come back, Marco is explaining all of the parts that are unreadable in these notebooks and how Scar is probably the only person who's ever going to be able to make sense of it, and we really need him for all of this. And as he's talking about it, Miles is looking over at these Chimera guys and is like, all right, well, we don't need them, so why don't you just take care of them? And Ed is like, wait, dude, what? You can't just kill them. And the two Chimera guys, Chimeras, is that what you said? I'm going to go back real quick and make sure I got it. Be more, Chimeras, right. Okay, cool. They are basically like, if you're going to kill us, then fucking kill us, because we're in this fucking form. And we can't, like, live normal lives like this. Which I thought was kind of surprising, because they can change back into looking human. So it seems like they should be able to live regular lives. But I'm not sure, like, maybe there's, like, some sort of other issue going on with them that we don't know about. I don't know, but it just surprised me that they are able to look totally normal in a way that I would think would allow them to go home and see their family and just, like, don't transform again around them. And wouldn't that be fine? Like, I get that their family knows or thinks that they're dead, so that is its own separate thing. But if they can look completely human, why wouldn't you just stay looking human then? Like, it's not... I'm not saying they don't have the right to want their regular real bodies back, because sure. But wanting your regular body back and being willing to just die because you think there's no point living in this body, that feels kind of extreme for the situation that they're in. Kyle says their names are Jerso for the frog and Zampano for the pig. Okay, I will forget that, but I'm going to keep looking over in this chat bar to remind me. Thank you, Kyle. So, yeah, these dudes eventually get a fucking talking to from Al, who Al, like, basically vouches for them. He's the one that steps in and is like, you can't just kill them. And the dudes are like, ugh, we didn't ask for your help, kid. Like, they're so shitty about it. It was actually kind of funny. And Al is like, what is your problem, guys? And they're just like, well, we have these bodies. Our families already think we're dead. How could we go back to them like this? And then Al basically, like, gives him a bit of a slap. And it's like, so what you're saying, let me get this straight. What you're saying is that you give up. Am I getting that right? You just aren't going to try anything else? I just want to make sure that I have it clear that you don't give a shit to the point that you are just willing to accept there's no hope, even though you could stay alive and find some other possibilities. And these two dudes sort of have a moment of like, well, okay, why are you taking such an attitude with us? You don't know what this is like. You have no idea what we were going through. And this is when Al just takes his helmet off and is like, you were saying? And he says, I know exactly what this is like. And I am fighting to get my body back. And if you guys are, like, strong and dedicated enough to see this through, you potentially could too. So we cut from there to Miles talking about how they can get back to the fort. And with the weather coming in, they don't know how they're going to be able to, like, get everybody out of here. And all of a sudden, here comes Yoki saying, well, it's a mining town, right? There's lots of tunnels. Why don't we just use those? And I really love everybody looks at him in like genuine surprise of just, you had an actual good idea. And he's delighted at the fact that they're like, that he's getting any positive reinforcement, honestly. There's something kind of cute about it, even though Yoki clearly was a bastard who is still suffering from extreme delusion about what really happened. Despite all of that, this moment of him being like really sort of chuffed at the fact that they are all praising him is kind of cute. I don't know. I just thought I really liked it. So that is what they decide to do. And like when they're talking about going into the tunnels, I'm thinking perfect plan. And then later, when I see them in the tunnels, all of a sudden I remembered Pride's attacks and I was like, oh my God, that didn't even occur to me. I didn't even think of it. Like, maybe it won't happen, but I don't see them being forced to go down into those tunnels and not run across Pride. I just don't see it. Now, the thing is, Ed and Al, potential sacrifices. I don't think Pride's fucking with them. But that doesn't mean he's not going to fuck with literally everybody else. Like, I don't know. So, and they talk about like how they're going to fool Kimblee and the whole like fact that Kimblee is extremely suspicious by nature, and he will not be fooled by, because Ed's sort of thinking, oh, I've got I'm a real smooth talker. I'll be able to get him to believe the thing. And Miles is like, I don't think you will. We have to set something up extremely convincingly. And this is when Winry comes up with the idea. Scar gets away, running with me. Ed, you and the others try desperately to stop him, or at least that's what you pretend to do. And Ed and Al are both like, this is crazy, you can't do this. And Winry is just like, dude, what choices do we have? 1. 2, y'all keep acting like you're the only ones who get to take risks, and frankly, that's fucked up. Like, I get to choose to be part of this if I feel like it. And 3, what other idea do you have? Re-reference number 1. But yeah, it's time for you two to learn that you don't have to do everything alone. And both of them just sort of shut up. As they should, because she is right. So our entire crew gets to, I'm just again delighted with these Chimera. Oh, and this dude says to Winry, your earrings, if you don't take them out, you'll get frostbite. This is the thing that I think is going to fuck them up. Here's how. She takes out her earrings in anticipation of being in really intense cold. But if she were taken prisoner, she would never have been given time to remove all of this jewelry. So either Kimblee is going to find it on Ed and figure out that this was hers, or he's going to see that she has piercings with no earrings in. And that in itself may not mean anything if he doesn't remember that she had earrings in earlier, but Kimblee feels like the kind of dude who is inconveniently extremely perceptive, and that he will absolutely notice that she had earrings in before and remember. Because there has to be, right? There has to be something that's a bit of a giveaway. They can't just get away with this. That isn't going to work. That Kimblee is already suspicious. We know he knows something is going on, even if he can't put his finger on what it is. So this has to be significant, because adding in that she takes off her earrings, like, story-wise, it's just not important. There's a reason it's here. And I think that has to be it. He's just... Kimblee is one of those infuriatingly competent villains. So I'm pretty certain that's what's going to happen. And she gives them over to Ed, like I said, to hold on to on her behalf. And then we cut back to like the beginning of the episode where Ed is in the midst of yelling at Kimblee. And then we go to the midst of the snowstorm. And Ed and Al are in this room and their snow is driving outside. It is seriously, it's quite a blizzard. And they're talking about like, let's see, Kimblee says, somebody is talking to Kimblee. That's right. One of his men who I think is in on everything with Miles, but I'm not positive. So let's see. Either Scar did them in or they're out there in the snow. The storm will have Scar trapped soon. We know he has to be somewhere in this town, sir. Since we're stuck here, we might as well start planning out our next search. And Miles is looking out the window thinking, this entire storm actually feels like extremely lucky. Because otherwise, I don't know how we would have been able to keep them from pursuing Scar. And then he gets another phone call, and he finds out essentially that the fort is no longer a safe place. This whole thing with General Armstrong, they're basically like, they're almost like an occupied base at this point. So then we go into the tunnels, and we've got the Chimeras and Yoki, Marco. I think they have May with them. I can't see her in this spot, but I'm assuming May is there. Scar and Winry. And Marco starts talking to Winry. You're the daughter of the Doctor's Rock Bell, which I don't know why, but I love that they're called that. The Doctor's Rock Bell. He says there isn't a single doctor who worked in Ishval that didn't know your parents' names. They did their duty without any regard to themselves. And it's kind of great because we get Scar's walking at the back of the pack. So when the camera turns, we see Winry, who is just glowing with this pride because of her, her parents' like legacy. And then right behind her over her shoulder is Scar, who is glowering because he is the one who like wiped these people off the face of the earth. And they were just known for being kind and generous and helping, and he thinks about her saying, I don't forgive your wanton murdering, and connects it with something that his master said in that other scene that we saw like a while back. This is something you must abide. And when Scar is like, how can I forgive them? He said, I didn't say that. I never said forgive them. There is no forgiveness for wanton murder. Any good man must always condemn it. But still, you must abide it. You must sever the chain of hatred once and for all. And then his brother, if hatred and anger were allowed to prevail, the world would be swallowed by them. But if ultimate understanding can be reached, we may still have a chance to be saved from ourselves. This is my motivation. That's why I study alchemy. Oh my God, Michael's saying wonton murder. I murdered some wontons last night. Michael, have some dignity, sir. How dare you? Oh man. But yeah, guys, I already said the whole if we just try to understand each other. No, there are people out there who are just power hungry monsters, whether they're actual literal monsters or human being monsters. Not everybody can be reasoned with. There's not just, they just don't understand. They understand. They understand. They just want to subjugate people. And that's just all there is to it. And that's part of the world. It's fine. It's not fine, but you get what I'm saying. But yeah, so Scar is having some internal turmoil right now. And then we have everybody pulling off into a staff room that was in the mine, and Yoki is looking through things because he knows what he's doing, and he finds an old map. and is able to figure out which way they can use to get out of here, which results in another moment of them being like, hey, you sure know how to read a map. And Yoki just being fucking peached, just delighted. It's just really cute. I really do like that. And this is when the guys have that moment of like, your son didn't want to be around you because you were such a drunk. But okay, so yeah, this is when Miles says the fort is no longer safe. Armstrong has been summoned back to Central Command, and troops sent from Central have begun invading Briggs in force. There's no doubt they're acting on the Crimson Alchemist's orders. When we were back at the fort, I noticed him making rather frequent phone calls. So General Armstrong has been taken out of play, at least at this location. I cannot tell you guys how much I dislike that. I don't want... What? I just... Look. I'm going to take it as a compliment on her behalf that she was seen as such a potential threat. And I don't even know that that's true, because she was still acting like she was interested in the immortal soldiers. I have to assume, though, Raven disappeared, right? Major Raven? What was his title? And I have to assume that it has gone noticed. It has been noticed that he is missing, and that whether or not she said to him personally, I might be interested in immortal soldiers, I'm pretty sure that information probably has not made it back to Central. They just got information from Kimblee. Yeah, it's really weird. I haven't seen Raven for a minute, and I'm being told that like nobody knows where he is, and he just somehow like got lost out there, or God knows what. I think there's an issue here. I think it's a threat. She's seen as a threat, and something is going to happen, and I don't know what that's going to look like, but I don't enjoy her being put in the position where she's going to be really close to the Fuhrer and close to Pride. You know, I don't know. Don't like any of this. General Raven. Thank you, B. Moore. So, yeah, a commander handpicked by Bradley will be posted in her place, which I have to assume is going to be Kimblee, but maybe not. I don't know. I feel like he's not actually part of the army anymore, so they can't like say, oh, we got this guy out of jail and then like promoted him. But whoever they put as commander is probably just going to be doing mostly what Kimblee says. So he's like, I anticipate he's going to be essentially commander in all but name, you know? And so now, yeah, our friends that are heading there in the tunnels are going into a fucking like nest of snakes, essentially. And with the storm as bad as it is, they don't know how to like catch up in time. So Ed is looking outside and he's just like, I can do it. I can go out there. And one of the dudes is like, man, look, kid, I know that you think that. You are deeply underestimating what this blizzard is. There is no fucking way. You're just not going to make it. I'm sorry. But you don't have any of the equipment on you. You don't have anything to protect yourself. Like, there's no. And this is when Al is like, well, I don't have a body, so maybe I can go. And the next thing we see is Al out in the wind. He's got something in his hand. Oh, that's right. It's the map to figure out where to go to get into the like tunnels and whatnot. And there is this really weird moment. The snow is driving at him, and I felt like I want to mention the animation here. This moment of the snow coming at him is so well done. I have seen a lot of snow animation, and I feel like this is the first time I've ever seen it really seem to like accurately depict what it's like to be stuck in snow of this nature, where it's like coming down this thick and the wind is heading straight for your face, because it is impossible to see. And it's hard to get that across to people who have never been in snow like this. Like the first time we ever experienced snow of this nature here in Texas was the snowpocalypse of 2021. And Owen loves snow, like in theory, but we went out for a walk in it and it was like this. And we got home and he was like, that fucking sucked. And I was like, see, people talk about like, take a walk in the snow. And I was like, the snow they're picturing is like Hallmark Christmas movie snow, where it's just lightly fluttering and it's very aesthetic and there's no wind. But this is the real thing. This is what it's like. And this is why people who like grow up in northern climates, they don't romanticize winter. Now, look, I do romanticize winter a little bit, but that's because I'm living in Texas right now. So I'm just telling myself a little lie. It's fine. But yeah, so it's coming at him and he suddenly can't see anything. And then all of a sudden the light goes white and he sees his body standing, staring at him with that door behind him. And his body reaches his hand out. His nails are all long and it's so creepy. And Al reaches forward to touch himself and his own hand disappears. And I said out loud, what was that? And then Al says, what was that? And I was like, thank you, sir. And he's just like, was that my body? Is it reaching out to me? Like, what even is happening? And he has a memory of Barry the Chopper saying, I guess a body can't really live with someone else's soul being shoved inside it. And Al says a body that shouldn't have a soul in it, it's being rejected? Does this mean my body is pulling on my soul? I don't really understand what he means about it's being rejected. Does he mean like the fact that that body doesn't have a soul in it is causing the body to like die? Or I'm not sure I really understood what he meant by that. And he like collapses here for a moment and has to tell himself to snap out of it. And I really don't know what to make of this. It feels like this is pointing to the fact that there's more of a timer on all of this than I thought. But I don't know. So this is when we go to Father. Father is in his weird fucking chair with all the pipes. He says Edward Elric, and he has this little like, statue that he's got on this this transmutation circle. And also there's von Hohenheim, and he puts him down. He's this little like these figurines, honestly, if these exist, if I could see this being something that's like real, made by fans or something. They're pretty cool. I like them. I don't like want them because I have an office now that there is no room for anything, but I do find them weirdly delightful. And then he says Izumi Curtis, she's a possibility, which I don't want her getting involved in this. I don't like it. She's too great. Leave her alone. Leave her out of it. He puts that figure on its side to indicate that it's not like a certainty. And he says that leaves one more. And then we have credits. There was no post-credit scene this episode. So that is the end of the episode. But yeah, there's I feel like we're like moving into a direction where Al is going to really need to get his body back pronto, or else shit's going to be bad for him. And I hate that for him. I do. So, all right, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. But thank you again all so much for coming and listening and hanging out and giving me information. Thank you again to Max for commissioning this episode. Appreciate it a lot. And don't forget to those out there listening to check out the Discord if you want some more chit chat on this. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.